Welcome, traveler. Pull up a seat and listen close. Today, I am going to tell you what it truly means to become a werewolf in Skyrim. Not the legend, not the glory, the truth. You have heard the stories about power and strength and the thrill of the hunt, but those stories leave out the parts that matter. The morning you wake up naked in the wilderness with blood under your fingernails and no memory of the night before. The realization that your soul belongs to a Daedric prince now, that Sovngarde is closed to you forever. The slow understanding that the beast sharing your body is patient and hungry and growing stronger every day. This is a confession from someone who has lived with the curse, someone who chose to keep it, knowing the cost, someone who wants you to understand what you are truly asking for when you reach for that kind of power. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. Now then, let me tell you how it began. I need you to listen to this carefully because once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Once you know what it feels like, you cannot unknow it. My name does not matter anymore. What I was before does not matter. What matters is what I became in the Underforge beneath Jorvaska on a night when the moons hung low over Whiterun. What matters is the blood. You think you understand what a werewolf is. You have seen the stories, heard the legends whispered in taverns across Skyrim. Beast form, claws and fury. The hunt under moonlight. You think it sounds glorious, powerful, like becoming something more than mortal. You have no idea what you are asking for. Let me take you back to that night. The companions had accepted me into their ranks after proving myself worthy. I had fought beside them, bled beside them, earned their respect through steel and sweat. But there was something more, something hidden beneath the surface of their fellowship, a secret that only the Circle knew. Skjor found me in the mead hall. His eyes held a knowing look, a kind of hunger I did not recognize then. He told me to meet him at the Underforge when darkness fell. He said I was ready for something greater. He said I would become stronger than I ever imagined. I thought he meant a new weapon. Advanced training. Some ancient Nordic technique passed down through generations of warriors. I was a fool. When I descended into that hidden chamber beneath the Skyforge, the air tasted different. Copper and earth and something wild. Torches flickered against carved stone walls that had witnessed this ritual countless times before, and there, standing beside the fountain in the center of the chamber, was Aela. But not Aela as I knew her. Not the huntress with the war paint and the confident smile. Aela the beast. Aela transformed. Her body had become something between woman and wolf, towering and muscular, covered in dark fur that seemed to absorb the firelight. Her eyes glowed amber in the darkness. When she breathed, I could see the steam rising from her snout. I could hear the low rumble in her chest, the sound a predator makes when it scents prey. Skjor spoke about the gift, about power and strength and the glory of the hunt. He told me that Kodlak was afraid of what we could become, that the old man saw our blessing as a curse. He was wrong, Skjor said. This was not a curse. This was evolution. This was transcendence. He asked if I was ready. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. The rational part of my mind, the part that still functioned like a normal person, knew something terrible was about to happen. But the warrior in me, the part that had survived dragons and bandits and ancient Draugr, that part could not resist the promise of power. I said yes. Skjor drew his blade across Aela's wrist in one swift motion. Her blood poured into the stone fountain, thick and dark. It did not flow like normal blood. It moved with purpose, with intent, as if it were alive and aware. The smell hit me like a physical blow. Iron and musk and wild things running under, open sky. The fountain filled. Skjor stepped back. Aela watched me with those inhuman eyes, and I knew, in that final moment of clarity before everything changed, that I was about to cross a line that could never be uncrossed. I drank. The blood, was hot in my mouth. It burned going down my throat. It tasted like rage and hunger and ancient forests where civilized men had never walked. For a moment, nothing happened. I stood there with blood on my lips, wondering if the ritual had failed. Then the pain started. It began in my chest, a pressure, like someone had wrapped iron bands around my ribs and was tightening them, crushing me from the inside out. My heart hammered against my sternum, beating so fast I thought it would burst. Heat flooded through my veins, burning away everything human, everything weak. My bones began to break. That is not a metaphor. That is not an exaggeration. My bones snapped and reformed, one by one, reshaping themselves into something designed for hunting and killing. My spine curved and elongated. My skull cracked and pushed forward into a snout. My fingers stretched and bent backward as claws erupted from beneath my nails. I tried to scream, but my throat was changing too, the sound coming out as a howl that echoed through the Underforge and up through the streets of Whiterun above. The world went red, then black, then red again. When I opened my eyes, I was outside. The cool night air felt different on my skin. No, not skin. Fur. Thick, dark fur covering every inch of my body. I looked down and saw massive clawed hands where my human hands had been. I tried to stand upright, but my body wanted to move forward on all fours, the way a wolf runs. My senses exploded. I could smell everything, not just smell, but understand through scent. I could track the path of every person who had walked these streets in the last hour. I could smell the fear coming off the guards at the gate, their sweat sour with adrenaline. I could smell horses in the stables and meat cooking in distant houses, and the metallic tang of weapons being sharpened. I could hear heartbeats, dozens of them, pumping away in the chests of sleeping citizens. Each beat was like a drum calling to something deep and primal inside me. Prey, food, the hunt. The hunger rose up like a tidal wave. This was not normal hunger. This was not the mild discomfort of missing a meal or the anticipation of supper after a long day. This was a raging, all-consuming need that drowned out every other thought. It was not hunger for food. It was hunger for violence, for blood, for the sensation of fangs sinking into warm flesh and the coppery taste of life draining away. I wanted to kill. I needed to kill. The urge was so strong it felt like madness. Guards came running. I heard them shouting, their voices high with fear. I saw their torches bobbing in the darkness. Some part of me, some tiny remaining fragment of my human consciousness, recognized them. These were men I had spoken to, joked with, helped on patrol. These were not enemies, but the beast did not care. The beast saw only moving targets, beating hearts, fresh meat. I do not remember much of what happened next. That is a mercy and a curse. Memory comes back in flashes, disconnected images that do not quite fit together. The wet sound of claws tearing through armor, the iron taste of blood, the sensation of my jaws closing around something soft that crunched between my teeth, screaming, so much screaming, and beneath it all, a terrible joy, a primal satisfaction that horrified the small human part of me that was still watching from somewhere deep inside. Time became meaningless. I ran through the streets of Whiterun, a blur of fur and fury and hunger that would not be satisfied. Citizens fled before me. Some hid in their homes. Some stood frozen in terror. I do not know if I killed anyone that night. I hope I did not, but I cannot say for certain. The hunger drove me on. Feed to extend the transformation, some instinct whispered. Feed to stay strong. Feed to remain in this glorious, powerful form forever. But eventually, inevitably, the bloodlust began to fade. The world started to blur at the edges. My enhanced senses grew dim. The strength drained from my limbs. I collapsed. When I woke, I was lying naked in the dirt outside Whiterun, my body human again, my skin covered in blood that was not all my own. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky the color of fresh wounds. My muscles ached, my head pounded, my mouth tasted like copper and ash. Aela stood over me, her expression unreadable. She said something about the transformation being difficult, about me being harder to control than most. Her words sounded distant, muffled, as if I were hearing them from underwater. I tried to remember what I had done. The memories were there but fractured, like looking at a reflection in broken glass. Images without context, sensations without meaning. I remembered the hunger. I remembered running. I remembered blood. But I did not remember whose blood it was. That is what they do not tell you about being a werewolf. They talk about the power and the speed and the strength. They do not talk about the morning after. They do not talk about waking up naked and bloody, with no idea what you have done. They do not talk about the sick feeling in your stomach as you try to piece together the night before, wondering if you murdered someone, if you destroyed something precious, if you crossed lines that can never be uncrossed. Aela helped me to my feet. She handed me my armor and weapons, which had been carefully collected after my transformation. Her beast blood made her my sister now, she said. We were part of the circle, part of something ancient and powerful. We hunted together. We killed together. We were bound by blood and moon and Hircine's dark blessing. I should have felt honored. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt hollow, violated, changed in ways I did not yet understand. She told me to get dressed, that we had work to do. The Silver Hand had a stronghold at Gallows Rock, and we were going to paint its walls red. Skjor was already there waiting for us. This was my initiation, my chance to prove myself worthy of the gift I had been given. Gift. She called it a gift. I got dressed slowly, my hands shaking. Every movement hurt. My body felt wrong, like a coat that did not quite fit anymore. Something had broken inside me during that transformation, something I could not name. And in its place, something else had taken root, something that was not entirely me. As we walked toward Gallows Rock, I tried to process what had happened. I tried to understand what I'd become, but understanding requires distance, requires perspective, requires the ability to step back and examine something objectively. I did not have that luxury. The beast was still inside me. I could feel it there, coiled beneath my skin, waiting for its next chance to break free. It was part of me now. We shared the same body, the same blood, the same fate, but we did not share the same mind. Not yet, anyway. The walk to Gallows Rock should have cleared my head. The morning air was crisp, the road familiar, the purpose straightforward. Hunt down the Silver Hand. Avenge whatever wrongs they had committed against the companions. Simple warrior work. But nothing was simple anymore. Every step felt strange. My body moved differently now, as if the transformation had left permanent marks on my muscles and bones. My center of gravity had shifted. My stride wanted to lengthen into a loping run. When I breathed, I could taste things on the air that no human should be able to taste. Fear sweat from a merchant traveling the road ahead. Decay from a dead animal 300 yards to the west. The metallic tang of weapons. Oil from Aela's blade. She walked beside me, comfortable in her skin in a way I no longer was. She had lived with this curse, this gift, this thing for years. She knew how to balance the human and the beast. She knew how to function in polite society while carrying a monster inside her chest. I did not know how to do that yet. The Silver Hand had fortified Gallows Rock well. Guard posts, traps, bottleneck entrances designed to funnel attackers into kill zones. They knew what they were hunting. They knew what we were, and they hated us for it. We found the first body before we even reached the entrance. It was Skjor. They had stripped him, tortured him, left his corpse displayed like a trophy in the main chamber. His beast blood had not saved him. His strength had not been enough. The Silver Hand had killed him slowly, methodically, with weapons. specifically designed to hurt creatures like us. Silver weapons. Aela's grief was immediate and violent. She transformed without warning, without hesitation, her human form exploding into fur and fang and rage. She did not ask me to join her. She did not wait for me to be ready. She simply became the beast and charged into the depths of Gallows, rock, howling her fury at the men who had killed her lover. I stood there for a moment, frozen. Then I felt it, the pull. The beast inside me wanted out. It smelled blood and sensed violence and knew, with absolute certainty, that this was what it was made for. Not philosophy, not contemplation, hunting, killing, revenge. I reached for the power, the beast form that now lived inside me like a second skin I could put on at will. The transformation was faster this time. Still painful, still wrong, but faster. Bones snapped and reformed in seconds rather than minutes. Fur erupted from my pores. My jaw extended into a snout filled with teeth designed for tearing flesh from bone. My hands became claws that could punch through steel armor, and the hunger returned. But this time, I was ready for it. This time, I knew what was coming. I could feel the rage building, the primal urge to kill everything in sight. But I held onto a thread of consciousness, a tiny piece of my human mind that refused to be drowned in the bloodlust. I would need that thread, because what happened next would test every ounce of control I thought I had. The Silver Hand fought like men who knew they were going to die. They did not run. They did not beg. They simply raised their silver weapons and came at us with the grim determination of zealots facing demons. And from their perspective, that is exactly what we were. Demons. Monsters. Violations of nature that needed to be purged from Skyrim. They were not entirely wrong. I tore through them like parchment. My claws opened throats and bellies with casual ease. My jaws crushed bones and severed limbs. The enhanced strength made their armor meaningless. The enhanced speed made their defenses pointless. They might as well have been fighting a hurricane. But the silver hurt. Every cut from their blessed blades felt like liquid fire poured into my veins. Silver was not just painful. It was wrong. It disrupted whatever dark magic held my werewolf, formed together, weakening me, making me sluggish and clumsy. A single deep cut from a silver sword could have ended me, and they knew it. Of course they knew it. That was why they hunted us. That was their entire purpose. One of them got lucky. A tall Nord with a silver greatsword managed to slash across my ribs as I eviscerated his companion. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, worse than anything I had felt since the initial transformation. My vision went white. My legs nearly buckled. The hunger surged to compensate. Feed, heal, survive. I fell upon the nearest corpse without thinking, my jaws closing around still warm flesh, tearing and swallowing in great ragged chunks. The taste was indescribable, not good, exactly, but satisfying on a level that bypassed normal hunger and went straight to something primordial. Power flowed back into my limbs. The silver wound began to close. The transformation extended, giving me more time, more strength, more fury. And with each bite, I felt the human part of me getting smaller. That was the secret they did not tell you. That was the truth hidden beneath the glory and the power. Every time you fed, every time you gave in to the hunger, you lost a piece of yourself. The beast grew stronger. The boundary between man and wolf became thinner. Eventually, if you fed enough, if you killed enough, the boundary would disappear entirely, and you would be lost. I fought my way through Gallows Rock in a haze of blood and fury, Aela somewhere. Ahead of me, both of us tearing through the Silver Hand like wolves through a flock of sheep. The chambers echoed with screaming and snarling and the wet sounds of bodies being torn apart. When we found their leader, Krev the Skinner, he was waiting for us in a circular chamber lined with torture implements, racks and chains and hooks. designed specifically for lycanthropes. He had killed and skinned dozens of us. Their pelts hung on his walls like trophies. He did not look afraid. He looked disappointed that there were only 2 of us. The fight was brutal and short. 3 of us, if you counted the beast inside, against one skilled hunter with silver weapons and years of experience killing things exactly like us. He was good. He was very good. But good was not enough. Aela took his left arm. I took his right. We left him alive just long enough to see the light fade from his eyes and understand that he had lost. Then the hunger took over again, and I fed. When I came back to myself, the transformation was ending. The beast form was fading, my body shrinking, back into its human shape, fur receding, claws retracting, the world becoming dimmer and quieter as my enhanced senses retreated. I collapsed next to Krev's mangled corpse, naked again, covered in blood again, shaking with exhaustion and horror at what I had done. Aela stood over me, human now, already dressed, somehow maintaining her dignity despite everything. She looked down at the remains of Krev the Skinner and nodded with satisfaction. Justice served, revenge taken, Skjor avenged. But I could not feel satisfaction. I could only feel the weight of what I had become settling onto my shoulders like a physical thing, because I remembered everything this time. Every kill, every bite, every moment of savage joy as I tore living men apart with my bare hands. The beast had been in control, yes, but I had been there too, watching, participating, enjoying it on some deep level I did not want to acknowledge. What do you think really happened in that moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I would like to know if I am the only one who feels this way. We returned to Jorvaska in silence. Other companions looked at me differently now. They could smell it on me, the beast blood. Some looked impressed, some looked envious, a few looked pitying. Kodlak looked disappointed. The old harbinger pulled me aside that evening after the others had gone to bed. He poured us both mead and we sat by the fire, 2 men trying to discuss something that defied words. He told me the truth then, the truth Skjor and Aela had conveniently forgotten to mention. The truth about Hircine, the Daedric prince of the hunt, father of all lycanthropes, the one who created this curse and called it a blessing. Every werewolf belonged to him. Our souls were his property, claimed the moment we drank the blood and accepted the transformation. When we died, we would not go to Sovngarde. We would not join our ancestors in the Hall of Valor. We would go to the hunting grounds, Hircine's realm of oblivion, to hunt and be hunted for eternity. That was the price of power. That was the cost of the gift. Our afterlife, sold without. Our knowledge or consent, signed away in a contract written in blood and sealed with transformation. Kodlak had made a deal with the Glenmorel witches centuries before he was born. One of the ancient harbingers, Terfig, had traded the souls of all future circle members for temporary power. He thought the curse would fade. He thought it was a limited arrangement. He was wrong. The curse passed from generation to generation, carried in blood and ritual, infecting everyone who joined the circle, whether they understood what they were accepting or not. Kodlak had spent years trying to find a cure, trying to break the bargain, trying to save his soul and the souls of his brothers and sisters. He had failed, and now I was part of that failure, part of that curse, part of a chain that stretched back through time to a decision made by a man who had been dust for hundreds of years. I asked Kodlak why he let it continue, why he allowed new members like me to be initiated if he knew the cost. He said he had no choice. The circle was divided. Skjor and Aela believed the curse was a blessing. Vilkas and Farkas were conflicted. He was the only one who saw it clearly, for what it was, and he was old, dying, running out of time to make things right. He apologized. He said he should have warned me. He said he should have fought harder to stop the ritual. But he had not. And now here we were. I left him sitting by the fire and went outside, needing air, needing space, needing to be anywhere but surrounded by people who saw me as something I no longer recognized. The moons hung overhead, full and bright. I could feel them pulling at something inside me. Not forcing transformation, but calling to it, encouraging it, whispering that I should let go, should stop resisting, should embrace what I had become. I thought about the people I had killed at Gallows Rock. The Silver Hand were murderers and torturers, yes, but they were also men doing what they thought was right, fighting monsters, protecting humanity. They had families, probably, friends, people who would mourn them, and I had torn them apart while howling with joy. That was the thing that kept coming back to me. The joy, the terrible, shameful, undeniable pleasure I had felt while doing it. The beast had not forced those feelings on me. They had come from somewhere deep inside, from a part of me I had never known existed. Or maybe they had always existed, and the curse had simply given them permission to surface. I did not sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the transformation chamber, tasted blood, felt bones breaking and reforming under my skin. The beast was still there, coiled inside me, patient and hungry, waiting for its next opportunity to come out and play. Days passed, then weeks. I learned to function with the curse, learned to ignore the enhanced senses that never fully went away, even in human form. Learned to dismiss the comments from guards who noticed fur growing from my ears or mentioned my wolfish grin. Learned to avoid silver, to hide the way my skin crawled when I passed a merchant selling silver jewelry or weapons. But mostly, I learned to fear myself, because the beast was always there, always watching, always waiting. And every day it grew, a little stronger, a little more insistent, a little harder to ignore. The transformation was not the curse. The transformation was just the symptom. The curse was knowing that eventually, one day, the beast would win. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from Skyrim, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. The worst part was not the transformations, it was the days between them. Living with lycanthropy meant living with secrets. Every conversation became a performance. Every interaction required calculation. When a guard asked about the smell, I laughed it off. When a merchant commented on my eyes looking strange in certain light, I changed the subject. When children pointed at the way I moved, their parents pulled them away quickly, instinctively recognizing something predatory in my bearing. I became a stranger in my own skin. The physical changes were subtle but constant. My appetite shifted toward raw meat. Cooked food tasted like ash. My sleep patterns fractured into restless cycles that followed the moon rather than the sun. I would wake at odd hours with my heart racing, convinced I could hear something hunting me, only to realize the sound was my own pulse thundering in my ears. And the dreams. Gods. The dreams. Every night I ran through forests that existed somewhere between memory and nightmare. I hunted things with human faces. I fed on people I recognized. I woke with blood under my fingernails that was not there, tasting copper, that existed only in my mind, hearing screams that had fallen silent hours before. The boundary between man and beast was not a wall. It was a membrane, thin and permeable, growing thinner every time I transformed. I tried to control it. I read everything I could find about lycanthropy. Old texts in the Jorvaska library, fragments of lore from travelers, whispered stories from the few people brave or foolish enough to discuss such things openly. Most of it was useless, superstition and fear dressed up as wisdom. But some truths emerged from the noise. Silver was our weakness, yes, but not because of any holy property. Silver disrupted the magical transformation, poisoned the beast blood, made us vulnerable. A silver dagger could kill a werewolf more efficiently than a steel greatsword. The Silver Hand had understood this. That was why they had hunted us so effectively. And they were not the only ones who knew our weakness. I started noticing silver everywhere, in shops, on belts, around necks. Every piece of silver jewelry felt like a threat. Every silver-trimmed weapon felt like an execution waiting to happen. The paranoia was irrational, but consuming. I found myself avoiding certain merchants, certain guards, certain areas of cities where silver was common. The fear became another cage, but the hunger was worse than the fear. Between transformations, I could feel it building. A pressure behind my eyes, a tightness in my chest, an itch beneath my skin that could not be scratched. The beast wanted out. It wanted to run and hunt and kill. And every day I denied it, the pressure grew stronger. Aela told me this was normal. She said I would learn to manage it, to channel it into productive hunts. She gave me jobs, contracts that let me transform in the wilderness away from witnesses, bandit camps to clear, monsters to slay, targets that deserved death. It helped, but not enough, because the beast did not care about deserving. The beast did not understand justice or morality or the difference between guilty and innocent. The beast only understood prey. I started avoiding people I cared about. Friends became distant acquaintances. Relationships withered. I told myself it was for their protection, that I was keeping them safe by maintaining distance. But the truth was simpler and more shameful. I was afraid they would see what I had become, afraid they would look at me and recognize the monster wearing a man's face. The companions understood, after a fashion. They were warriors who lived with death. They had seen terrible things, done terrible things in the name of duty and honor and survival. But even they did not fully comprehend what it meant to carry the beast. Only the other members of the circle truly understood. Vilkas, Farkas, Aela. We shared something that went beyond brotherhood, beyond fellowship. We shared a curse that bound us tighter than any oath. But that bond came with its own complications. Vilkas hated what he had become. He transformed rarely, only when absolutely necessary. And afterwards he would disappear for days, wrestling with guilt and self-loathing. He saw the beast as a parasite, a violation of his true self that needed to be contained at all costs. Farkas was more pragmatic. He accepted the curse as a tool, useful in certain situations, irrelevant in others. He did not love it or hate it. He simply endured it with the same patient stoicism he brought to everything else. Aela embraced it. She was the only one among us who truly believed the curse was a gift. She transformed frequently, hunted for pleasure rather than necessity, reveled in the freedom and power that came with beast form. She tried to convince the rest of us to do the same. She tried to convince me. We spent a night together in the wilderness, hunting a pack of vampires that had been terrorizing a settlement near Riften. The hunt was successful. The vampires died, screaming. And afterwards, as we sat by a fire watching the sun rise, Aela told me I was fighting the wrong battle. She said the curse was not something to overcome, it was something to accept. The sooner I stopped resisting, stopped trying to maintain the illusion of pure humanity, the easier everything would become. The beast and the man could coexist. They could even complement each other. She transformed while we talked, showing me how natural it could be, how effortless. Her body flowed from human to wolf and back again, like water changing shape. No pain, no resistance, just change. She made it look beautiful. I tried to explain that what looked like resistance was actually the last thread holding me to myself. That if I stopped fighting, stopped maintaining that boundary between human and animal, I might never find my way back. She laughed. She said I was being dramatic. She said the beast was not separate from me. It was me. The deepest, most honest version of myself, all the civilized restraint and social performance stripped away, leaving only pure instinct and desire. She was right and wrong at the same time. The beast was me, but it was not all of me. And if I let it consume the parts that made me human, the parts that valued mercy and compassion and choice, then what remained would be hollow, powerful perhaps, free maybe, but hollow. If you have ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. I will be reading them. I never told Aela this, but I envied her certainty. She had found peace, with her curse in a way I never could. She had integrated the beast so completely that she no longer saw a distinction. She was simply herself, whole and unified and comfortable in both skins. I would never have that peace. The months passed. I became more skilled at managing the transformation, more careful about when and where I let the beast out, more disciplined about feeding only on targets that deserved it, or at least could be justified in some moral framework I had constructed to preserve my sanity. But discipline was not the same as control, and control was not the same as freedom. I still woke up some mornings with blood on my hands and gaps in my memory. I still found myself standing over corpses I did not remember, killing, trying to piece together what had happened during the blackout. The beast was getting stronger, more independent, more capable of taking control without my permission, and always, there was Hircine. I felt him watching sometimes, a presence at the edge of perception, vast and ancient and patient. The Daedric Prince of the Hunt did not need to intervene or manipulate. He already owned me. My soul was his property, signed over in a contract I had not read and could not break. When I died, I would not join my ancestors. I would not feast in the Hall of Valor, or rest in peaceful darkness, or experience whatever afterlife awaited mortal souls. I would hunt forever in the hunting grounds, prey and predator simultaneously, locked in an eternal cycle of violence and fear. That was the real curse. Not the transformation, not the hunger, not even the loss of control. The curse was knowing that death was not an escape. The curse was understanding that every day I lived as a werewolf was another day I belonged to something vast and hungry and inhuman. Kodlak died before he could break the curse. The Silver Hand came for him during a night when most of the companions were away on contracts. They attacked Jorvaskr in force, dozens of them, well-armed and well-coordinated. They killed the Harbinger in his sleep, took the fragments of Vuthrad, and disappeared into the darkness before anyone could mount a proper defense. We buried him with full honors. Warriors from across Skyrim came to pay their respects. Songs were sung, mead was poured, stories were told about his wisdom and strength and unwavering dedication to honor. But he died with the curse still in his blood. He died knowing his soul would go to Hircine rather than Sovngarde. He died having failed the one quest that truly mattered to him. Unless we could cure him posthumously, the witches who had created the curse could also break it. The Glenmoral Coven had been destroyed, but their magic remained. We took a witch's head to Ysgramor's tomb and performed a ritual that should not have been possible. We fought Kodlak's beast spirit in the realm between life and death and freed his soul from Hircine's grasp, and it worked. Kodlak's spirit appeared before us, cleansed and whole, ready to enter Sovngarde at last. He thanked us, he blessed us, he told us we had given him the one thing he wanted most: freedom. Then he said something that has haunted me ever since. He said that one day, when the time was right, he would lead a battle to free all the cursed companions from Hircine's realm. The harrowing of the hunting grounds, he called it. A war in the afterlife to rescue the souls that had been stolen. It was a beautiful dream, a noble hope, a promise of eventual redemption. But it was also an admission that redemption was not possible in life. That once you became a werewolf, once you accepted the curse, your fate was sealed. You could only hope that someone would love you enough to fight for your soul after you were dead. I could cure myself the same way we had cured Kodlak. The witch heads remained. The ritual was proven. All I had to do was return to Ysgramor's tomb, fight my own beast spirit, and be free. Aela would grant me the curse again later if I wanted it. The Dawnguard expansion to reality, if you will, meant I could become a werewolf multiple times, go back and forth between cursed and clean as many times as I chose. But that was the problem. That was always the problem, the choice. Because now that I understood the cost, now that I had lived with the curse and felt what it did to my soul, choosing to keep it meant something different. It was not ignorance or accident. It was conscious acceptance of damnation. Some of the companions chose to be cured. Vilkas went first, eager to be free. Farkas followed eventually, though he took more time to decide. They fought their beast spirits and won. They stood in Ysgramor's tomb as the curse lifted, feeling the beast blood drain away, becoming fully human again for the first time in years. They said it felt like being born again, like a weight they had forgotten they were carrying suddenly, lifted from their shoulders. I went to the tomb. I held the witch's head. I stood before the flame of the harbinger, ready to throw the head into the fire and begin the ritual that would free my soul. And I could not do it, because somewhere during those months of living with the curse, the beast had become part of my identity. Not all of it, not even most of it, but enough that removing it felt like cutting away a piece of myself. The power was seductive, yes. The strength and speed and enhanced senses were useful, certainly. But that was not why I kept it. I kept it because the alternative meant admitting I had sacrificed my soul for nothing, meant accepting that I had damned myself by accident, through ignorance, because I had trusted the wrong people and asked the wrong questions. Keeping the curse, let me pretend it was a choice. Let me construct a narrative where I was in control, where I had agency, where the damnation was something I selected rather than something that happened to me. It was a lie, but it was a lie I needed to survive. So I walked out of Ysgramor's tomb still cursed, still bound to Hircine, still carrying the beast. Aela was the only other one who kept it. The last two werewolves among the companions. She smiled when she saw me, understanding without words what my decision meant. We were pack now, the only pack that mattered, and we would be pack forever, even in death, even in Hircine's realm, even in the eternal hunt that waited beyond mortality. This is what it is like to be turned into a werewolf. Not the transformation itself, though that is horrific enough. Not the power or the hunger or the violence, though those are terrible in their own ways. What it is like is knowing that you have traded your eternity for temporary strength. Knowing that every person you love will go to their proper afterlife, while you hunt forever in a realm of blood and darkness. Knowing that the choice was made before you understood what you were choosing, and now it is too late to take it back. Unless you are willing to give up the one thing that makes the curse bearable, the illusion that you chose this, the lie that you are still in control. I am a werewolf. I will always be a werewolf. And when I die, Hircine will claim what belongs to him. My soul, my eternity, my endless hunt. This is what you need to understand before you ever consider accepting the beast blood, before you drink from the fountain in the Underforge, before you make a bargain you cannot break. The transformation is not the curse. The curse is what comes after.